Before we begin, here's a quick reminder as to why Psych2Go exists. Our mission is to make psychology easier to understand, more compassionate, and a little less lonely to explore. We create these videos to help people better understand themselves and the people around them, and to make the journey of being human feel a little less confusing. If you'd like to support our work, consider subscribing to help us reach 15 million subscribers. It truly means a lot. In return, we'll keep exploring topics that aren't often talked about but really deserve to be. Now, let's get into today's topic. Have you ever experienced a sexual urge that seemed to come out of nowhere, but you didn't actually want sex? Maybe your body suddenly felt aroused, but your mind wasn't interested, or a random sexual thought appeared while you were focused on something completely unrelated. Experiences like this can feel confusing. Some people even worry it means something about their character, desires, or intentions. But in many cases, what's happening has less to do with what you want and more to do with how the brain processes stimulation, stress, and automatic thoughts. Your brain generates thousands of thoughts every day, and your body often reacts to signals before your conscious mind has time to interpret them. And sometimes those signals include sexual ones. So today, let's explore why you can sometimes feel sexual urges without actually wanting sex. Understanding the difference between sexual desire and sexual urges. Have you ever felt your body react even though your mind wasn't interested? Maybe a sudden sexual thought appears, or your body feels aroused, but you don't actually want sex. If that happened to you before, you're definitely not the only one. Experiencing this can feel confusing. One reason is that sexual desire and sexual urges are not the same thing. Sexual desire is the psychological interest in intimacy or connection. It's the feeling of wanting to be close to someone in a romantic or sexual way. Sexual urges, on the other hand, are more physical and automatic. They can appear as sudden arousal, intrusive sexual thoughts, or a physical sense of tension pushing towards stimulation or release. The key difference is simple. Desire is about wanting. Urges are signals from the body and brain. Because these systems are connected but not identical, they don't always activate at the same time. That's why someone can experience a sexual urge even when they don't actually want sex. But that raises an interesting question. If you don't actually want sex, why would your body trigger an urge in the first place? There are several reasons that this can happen, and the first one has to do with how your brain processes information. 1, your brain processes signals automatically. One reason is that your brain is constantly scanning the environment for cues related to reward, pleasure, and attraction. Things like body language, scent, voice tone, or visual features can activate parts of the brain involved in arousal and motivation. In fact, the brain can begin processing attraction in less than a second, often before you consciously notice what you saw. The important thing is that this process often happens without you realizing it. Psychologists call this automatic processing, when the brain reacts to certain signals before your conscious mind has time to interpret them. Areas like the hypothalamus and the brain's reward system can activate before your conscious mind even realizes what's happening. Because of this, the body may briefly respond to a stimulus even if you have no intention or interest in acting on it. In other words, your brain sometimes reacts first and your conscious mind catches up later, but automatic reactions are only part of the story. Sometimes the source of these urges comes from your own thoughts. 2, sexual thoughts are one type of intrusive thought. Your mind generates a constant stream of spontaneous thoughts throughout the day. Some are helpful, some are random, and some are uncomfortable or unexpected. Psychologists refer to these as intrusive thoughts, which are thoughts that appear automatically in the mind even when they don't reflect what someone actually wants. Intrusive thoughts can include many things: embarrassing memories, fears, aggressive ideas, or sexual thoughts. Maybe a random sexual thought appears while you're studying, in a meeting, or even while watching something completely innocent. And interestingly, the more someone tries to suppress the thought, the more it's likely to return. So a sudden sexual thought doesn't necessarily mean you desire it. Sometimes it's simply your brain producing a random mental event. But thoughts aren't the only thing that can influence these urges. Your emotional state can also play a role. 3, stress can increase sexual urges. Another reason sexual urges sometimes appear is stress. When people feel overwhelmed or mentally drained, the brain often looks for quick ways to relieve tension. Sexual stimulation can activate dopamine and endorphins, chemicals associated with pleasure and emotional regulation. Because of this, the brain may generate sexual urges as a way of temporarily reducing stress. But that doesn't always mean someone actually wants intimacy in that moment. Sometimes it's simply the nervous system searching for relief from pressure. And sometimes the confusion happens because the body and mind don't always respond in the same way. 4, your body and mind don't always sync. One of the most misunderstood things about sexuality is that physical arousal and psychological desire are separate processes. Arousal is the body's physical response. Desire is the mental or emotional interest in sexual connection. And these two systems don't always activate at the same time. So it's possible for someone to feel physical arousal without wanting sex, or to want intimacy while their body hasn't responded yet. Psychologists sometimes call this misattribution of arousal, when the body's physical signs don't perfectly match what the mind actually wants. This mismatch is actually super common. Another thing that can happen is spontaneous arousal. This is when the body shows signs of arousal even though the person isn't thinking about anything sexual. Understanding this can help people realize that bodily reactions don't always reflect their intentions or desires. 5, curiosity is a natural part of the human brain. Human brains are naturally curious. We explore ideas, imagine possibilities, and mentally stimulate different experiences all the time. This curiosity can sometimes include thoughts related to attraction, relationships, or sexuality. Occasionally, the brain generates these thoughts simply because it's exploring possibilities, not because someone intends to act on them. Just like the mind can imagine awkward conversations, embarrassing situations, or strange dreams, it can also produce sexual thoughts that don't reflect your true intentions. Thoughts are simply events in the mind. They don't define who you are. What you can do when this happens. So, what can you do if you experience a sexual urge that you don't actually want? One helpful step is simply acknowledging the feeling without judging yourself for it. Because urges often come from automatic brain processes. Trying to suppress or fight them too aggressively can sometimes make them feel stronger. Instead, many psychologists recommend noticing the sensation, letting it pass, and gently redirecting your attention to something else. For example, you might take a few slow breaths, shift your focus back to what you were doing, or remind yourself that an urge is simply a temporary signal from the brain. Most urges naturally fade after a short time if they aren't reinforced. Understanding what's happening in your mind can make those moments feel much less overwhelming. Experiencing sexual urges without actually wanting sex can feel confusing, but in many cases, it's simply the result of automatic brain processes, intrusive thoughts, stress responses, or the natural difference between physical arousal and psychological desire. Having a thought or urge doesn't mean you have to act on it. Understanding how the mind and body work together can make these moments feel a lot less confusing. We truly appreciate all of your love and support for our work. If you found these videos helpful, check out our video on when sexual urges hit out of nowhere. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever noticed certain moods or situations that seem to trigger these urges? Feel free to share your experience in the comments. It might help someone feel understood. As always, please take care of yourselves. You deserve it. Until next time, Psych2Goers.